Alright guys, Heretics again, so I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day. So far, 4 teams remain going into the Championship Sunday of the Esports World Cup, and in many respects, the tournament so far has played out in exactly the way you might have wanted for Rostermania to be the most chaotic that it could possibly be. OpTic texted today, when it mattered, playing under the OpTic gaming banner, took down 100 Thieves in a single elimination style to continue their reign of terror over these last few weeks. What does that mean for Thieves? Big reaction from those players, especially with some of the KDs that were getting put on the table today. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. Apologies, the video was a couple of hours late. I was actually at a swimming competition tonight because I've taken it up again as a bit of a hobby. And I actually, the boy only got on 1 the 50 fly. Look at this bad boy. Okay, it's not exactly one of these keys for the World Cup made out of 24 karat gold. But yeah, it ain't bad. So anyway, apologies for that. The video's late, but you know, a trade-off sometimes worthwhile. And let's dive into the action, baby, because this is, actually, let's ignore that. Let's just move on very swiftly. This was the bracket for the day. OpTic 100 Thieves, of course, that was going to be the last game of the day. Heretics, Boston, Movistar, Koi, Omit, Surge, Five Fears. It was all going on, as we well know. There's a bit of drama, first of all, before the day even began. I will just quickly mention this. So for semis and finals tomorrow, it's semi 1, semi 2, consolation final, and then the grand final tomorrow. Karma says, semis and finals a coin flip for the team pick. Are we drunk? And, well, presumably not, because they're in Saudi Arabia and it's a dry country. But as Benjay says, you know, why should they, you know, what should they do for seeding then to decide? And Karma's like, well, hang on a second. We are the #1 seed. We just won the World Championship. They seeded us in the groups based on that. So I get what Benjay's saying. It's like, okay, the tournament so far, how are you going to tell who's done better out of OpTic and Heretics? You know, tough to say. Heretics topped their group as well, but obviously OpTic were the #1 seed. So coin flip for the team side pick. That is apparently the rule as it is going to be played. And Benjay says, yeah, you can use CDL standings to make the groups fair. After that, it's non-CDL comps. So why would you use that seeding? Ben, you're getting cooked. Relax. Don't care. Give me the Elon bucks. So I thought that was pretty funny, really. But Karma and Benjay going at it a little bit there on the timeline. Definitely understand Karma's side of that one. It was also this. Neptune says, I fear I've blitzed too hard this weekend. What have I done? As we know, there's a bit of drama when it comes to snaking and some of the stair glitching that Neptune may or maybe was not doing, who knows, during the course of the tournament. And Neptune had some pretty spicy words today, and we'll see what Ghosty had to say in response to the OpTic series in a second. But, you know, Neptune says, Ghosty should have deleted the tweets. I'll take my losses on the chin like a man. So, yeah, quite the saber drat. I mean, look, Neptune, we talk about his trash talk. We talk about him standing up and pointing the finger across the stage. And, you know, Abuzah's given his comments on that over the months that we've had it. But to be fair to Neptune, you know, he sits there, he backs up his talk, and he's doing it again. So that's what Neptune was up to on the timeline. But let's get into some of these series, right? Because Boston played Heretics first up, and, well, it was another Rencor masterclass. We've got to say, he didn't have the craziest KD this series, but, I mean, this game, 40 and 26, doesn't get much better than that. This guy's been out of control this year. He speaks good English, great personality. I think, and I've thought for some time to be fair, but especially now with the FaZe situation, with the Thieves situation, that Rencor has got to be a target for those teams. Maybe Heretics can keep hold of him, maybe he would want to stay. And maybe Heretics win this event. I mean, it's not out of the realms of possibility. Single elimination, it is what it is. They play OpTic tomorrow, as we'll look at over the coming minutes. But Rencor will definitely be a target. If those teams are making changes, Rencor is absolutely a man that they will look at. They could even think about a couple of guys in the Heretics team, and Heretics will have to, you know, look at their bank account and figure out, okay, can we really pay enough salary to keep these guys on board? That might be a serious challenge right now. Jake Hell says Renkor's going to get a fat contract next year. Rencor with the FaZe trio, Rencor to FaZe. You know, I don't know what the rumours say. It's just something to keep in mind regardless going into the rest of the season. Well, the off-season, as we're pretty much at the very next point. Metals, it's pretty rare that you see an absolute Metals masterclass, but when it happens, Heretics are unbeatable. Like, they may as well be as good as unbeatable. Maybe OpTic, you know, OpTic could probably still beat them, but you know what I'm saying? Like, if Metals has a banger series, you just aren't beating them. It is what it is. Boston, their bread and butter has been the search. They actually won game 1 here. There's a bit of drama at the hacienda. They actually ended up winning it. And then they lost the Search and Destroy, and the Search and Destroys kind of fell apart for them, which is a bit of a surprise, really, because Boston in that mode, typically, that's where they have been particularly strong, but they couldn't get to the Game 5 this time. They lost the Vault 3-0, and Metals at a 1.4, so not much you're going to be able to do about that. Difficult series out of Perth to close out the tournament, but yeah, they bow out to Boston. You know, credit where it's due this season. They've done a solid job with the pieces that they had on the table, and who knows what they can pull off next year. The next series up, Surge played 5 Fears, and in the end, as Hixie actually made a tweet after the fact saying, look, we tried, but against probably the 2 best teams in the game, certainly feels that way right now in OpTic and Surge, there's nothing they could really do, right? Because 5 Fears, they played their groups, they beat G2, they beat Cloud9. The game they lost in groups was, as we know, to OpTic. They then turn up in the bracket and they play Surge. At the end of the day, a commendable fight was put up by the 5 Fears guys. It wasn't enough in the end, and it was a 3-0, but it wasn't absolutely, insanely crushing. I mean, it wasn't great, was it? Let's be honest. But you see with the 1.08, like, the Burger King really came to play this tournament, but fair play to Surge. Abuzah has really turned up, I'm not going to lie. Like, this guy has gone different level lately. His KD on the season is a 1.01, but you wouldn't think it, looking at the recent results. I mean, even the last 5 series he's played, you can see what the numbers look like there. And if we look at Abuzah's event stats this season, started off 0.9, 1.0, whatever. And okay, Major 4 wasn't great, to be fair, but it definitely feels like, as of late, he's turned up. And, certainly at the World Cup, that has most certainly been the case. And also, you've got to consider that these numbers are playing the best teams, because they tend to make deep runs and they tend to make finals. And that's what Surge may well continue to look to do. Then we had Toronto play Omit. Again, it turned out to be relatively clean in terms of who ended up winning the series. This clip, for some reason, doesn't want to load for me, but the bottom line is that Toronto got the victory. It was pretty clean 3-0 in the end. Omit bow out of the tournament. JoeDeceives and Insight with the Masterclass series here, which is particularly interesting, right? I mean, Joe was absolutely on fire this series. It was kind of insane. But Insight, 1.5. I mean, it does feel like maybe with CleanX, the changes they've made over there. And yeah, Insight's damage wasn't crazy by any means. And Abe did basically nothing this game. He had 6,000 damage, lowest in the lobby. But it didn't matter because, they were crushing it, right? The Vault was pretty dominant, really. But it was that game 1 where JoeDeceives is 43 and 21 for the dub. Not much you're going to do about that. Omit had their chances in the Search and Destroy, but in the end, the round 11 went to Toronto, and then it was shortly thereafter GG's. So, commendable run from the Challengers teams, but they turned up to the bracket, played some tough competition, and went home. And at the end of the day, the way this bracket has transpired is just so spicy, right? Because Toronto, we know that there's been a lot of potential in there that they've not really unlocked all season. They've got rid of Beans, and now maybe Insight's playing better with the new setup with CleanX on the flex. Abe has been looking pretty good in general, and we know that JoeDeceives has real star power if he deploys it, which sometimes he does. And on the other side, the Challengers teams just about went down. But, I mean, OpTic, Surge, Heretics, and Toronto on the Championship Sunday, it's very interesting indeed. Fair play to Mamba as well and the guys on Omit. I hope that those guys will be considered, if not getting spots next season. I think they probably should after the results that we have seen over the last couple of days. As Mamba says, found out a couple of days before the event that my pops had 2 small heart attacks and was admitted to the ER. So bummed out I didn't make it further for him. So wishing the best for his father and his family. And as he says, this is, the team, it's news to the team because he didn't tell any of them because he wanted to make sure that it didn't affect their performance. So yeah, amazing stuff. Really cool to see new personalities like Mamba on the scene, and hopefully a sign of things to come that he can stay around for many a year, and hopefully all's well when he gets back home as well. This, though, was the banger series. I mean, this was expected to be the big one, OpTic versus the 100 Thieves roster. And they got absolutely pissed-slammed on the game 1. Like, this was bad. And it's so crazy. Like, I know that Shawnee said in that video that Mercules was an industry plant. And I don't understand what this timeline we are living in is when OpTic were 0-18. I mean, they were 0-21. They lost 21 maps in a row. If you go back to Major 1 where they lost to Ravens, they lost 3 maps in a row there. They then lost 18 in a row in their qualifier run before beating LAG or something. It was honestly unbelievable. For them to go to that, to where they are today, OpTic looking, against the Thieves roster that won Major 3, won Major 4, has unbelievable raw talent on their team, but maybe simply not enough raw talent. And that is the debate, because at the end of the day, this lobby today had 6 absolute shooters, and it had 2 players who were not absolutely shooting. And 100 Thieves may ask themselves the question in the off-season. They may well have to ask themselves a question in the off-season, what they might consider doing about that. So game 1 on the Skyline, they got absolutely battered. Game 2, Thieves do bounce it back. They win the rewind search, so it was very much game on at this point. Scrap and HyDra, the crowd was bringing the energy. And, HyDra making some big plays. Scrap in the end takes down Shotzzy. Ghosty gets the defuse. They get the job done. They tie up the series 1-1. Then we had a control, a Hassy the control. And, Dashy was making plays like this. People have been, obviously Dashy has been such an interesting character over the last few years. But we know that his gunny is completely undeniable. I know shots are onto Ghosty. Okay, maybe it's a little bit weak, but it pretty much paints the picture of the way this series was transpiring. The Hassy the control was not close. And then it was a rewind hardpoint, right? This, of course, great map for Thieves. They loved this map at the start of the game, and it's kind of poetic in a way that OpTic managed to find a way to take them down on this map. Of course, they won the World Championship on this map. I don't know how Dashy wins that gunfight here on HyDra. That's just an absurd one. Okay, to be fair, Dashy actually was in the distance, wasn't he? This was Shotzzy up close, who managed to evade some of the shots, and then Dashy gets the kill from range. But still, pretty crazy stuff to get that kill. And then, Mercules is here saying, look, it's just like champs, let's just lock in and get the job done. Absolute scenes. But as you can tell by the scoreboard we're about to see in a second, and yeah, Shotzzy at this point was 4-14. Huke at this point was 2-10, 2-11. But it didn't prevent OpTic from making the comeback. That's what's so impressive about OpTic is that they've got every single tool in the arsenal. They're not just a big front-running team. They're not just a heavy slaying team. They did it at champs, right? They went down early against Surge on this very map at the World Championship Grand Final, and they brought it back and won the map. And guess what they did again? And it was Shotzzy with all 4 towards the end of the game. I mean, this was, such a defining moment, really, of the tournament. Look, these two teams, they could have made it very deep. Obviously, single elimination is what it is. But this 4-piece from Shotzzy really just showed the dominance that OpTic currently have over this Dominion, and really showed Thieves that at the end of the day, whatever you want to say, single elimination or not, and yeah, they lost to OpTic, maybe OpTic will win the tournament again, certainly the best team in the game as it stands, they still got top 8 again. It's back-to-back top 8s. And it wasn't really especially close, right? I mean, even the search and destroy, OpTic will feel like could have maybe gone a different way. This, as we saw, was the winning moment, and, we just looked at that, the reaction of the watch party from the OpTic perspective. And this was the overall numbers right on the series. And the key point, again, it's got to be said, is on Envoy. He had a pretty bad game 1 at a 0.7 in the end. The game 3 was even worse. He was 13-25 for a 0.5. Ghosty was struggling here too. And then the final map, after a decent start from Envoy, he had a really bad back end of the game and ends up with a 0.7. Not like Huke had a good map here either, but it happens occasionally. And Mercules is just him. Mercules is him. The fact that Mercules has done this now against FaZe, Thieves, throw him whoever you want. Mercules is going to have a generational series against them. Game 1, he drops a 1.76, and that's against the Thieves team that looked indomitable not that long ago. So it's a crazy turn of events, but I think this scoreboard tells you quite a lot. I mean, Dashy and Mercules absolutely cooking, Huke and Shotzzy holding their own, and on the other side, Scrap and HyDra also trying their best. But yeah, the other guys just not quite at the races. And when you're playing a team as dominant as OpTic from a slaying perspective, from a talent perspective, it's maybe something that you just can't afford, and that will be one of the key questions going into these next couple of weeks, because if Thieves stick it out after back-to-back top 8s at the biggest tournaments of the year, at least in terms of prize money, I will be very surprised, right? Going into this tournament, I definitely saw a world where Thieves would stick. I never thought FaZe was sticking, pretty much whatever happened this tournament, but I thought Thieves could stick, depending on what happens. And maybe there's a chance they will, but I definitely think it's more likely than not that Thieves will have to do something, especially because the FaZe guys are going to be on the market, right? It seems almost insane to imagine that Thieves would actually stick it out when probably every single FaZe player is gettable if you want them, right? So, yeah, it's pretty crazy right now. Shotzzy says, GG's LA Thieves, Heretics are next. So it's Heretics OpTic in the first semi-final. It's Surge Toronto in the second semi-final. Both potentially banger games. Look, OpTic Surge is the expected Grand Finals rematch from champs, but I've got a feeling that might not necessarily happen, because who knows, right? In this tournament, as Jake Cal says, Mercules really spent a couple of weeks in the league, brought about the end of 2 super teams, and has given us possibly the craziest rostermania you're ever going to see. And yeah, there are already rumours flying around about this rostermania. What's going to happen? It is going to be fireworks. There is no doubt about that. Obviously, the Thieves guys commented on it. I wanted to share a couple of thoughts on that side because potentially kind of telling. Scrappy says, I just don't understand what happened to us the last month of the game. All I want is to win these big tournaments, but it's felt like I haven't even given myself a chance to. Shout out my teammates, coaches, everyone who's been part of the journey. So, yeah, pretty crazy, really, the way that this team collapsed. And this was the Envoy perspective. Couldn't get a kill in any respawns. GG's to everyone until next year. You know, I don't know. I read that tweet and I'm like, there must be part of Envoy that thinks, am I going to be on this team next year? Not exactly a guarantee. And Ghosty says something kind of similarly. I played poorly. These last 2 events didn't even go remotely close to plan. I'd like to apologise to everyone for supporting, or everyone supporting, for those performances. Thanks to the fans, basically. But yeah, tough times for those gentlemen. And what does it mean over the next couple of weeks? There's no doubt it is going to be absolute chaos. And before we even get to that point, we've got to crown a champion of this tournament. So very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.